Hi, everyone. My name is Edith Yang. I am with Founders Hong Kong. And thank you for tuning in. We are right now at 9 a.m. sharp, Hong Kong time. And for those of you who are joining us today, and we're still waiting for a few more, just a quick reminder of what Founders Hong Kong is all about. We are a nonprofit organization with the goal to connect Hong Kong founders and investors with Silicon Valley. And for those of you who may not know, we have a lot of amazing Hong Kongers in the US from the Facebook, Google, Apple, LinkedIn, and in this today case, like Instagram and Nike, a lot of really amazing founders, operators, and startup experts that are in the US, in Silicon Valley, that actually love Hong Kong and love to sort of contribute back to the community. So we do this once a month, and it's really all about sharing our expertise with the Hong Kong community and really wanted to do more support the startup ecosystem. So today I'm going to turn it over to Jonny and also Louise tuning in, and they are expert in marketing. And after this, I'm going to disappear and then let them talk, and I let Jonny be the host and have this conversation with Louise. But just a quick advertising for next month. I think the January 3rd or January 4th, Alfred Chong and I are going to talk about 2024 funding and venture prediction. So hope to see you in 2024 next year. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jonny, and I'm going to make you host, Jonny, and then see you guys soon.
Thank you, Edith. Bye. See you around.
Thank you,
Well,
Edith.
everyone, welcome everyone for joining this webinar. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are maybe. So today we're going to talk about marketing 101 for startup founders. I see some of you might not be founder, but that's okay. You know, this topic is really broad and it will cover how to do marketing from ground zero. So come join in and start rocking. So yes, my name is Jonny. I will be joined by my guest, Louise Morgan. So welcome, Louise, on the stage.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Hi,
so
everyone.
I'm gonna kind of share a little bit about her background. So she had recently worked at Instagram, just managing the account on Instagram, helping it to grow, building a vibrant organic community there. And then prior to Meta, she worked at Nike, handling multi-billion marketing campaigns. So I think she has a lot of experience doing brand building, retention, and monetization strategy. About a little bit about me, I am a B2B marketer working at a cybersecurity startup right now in San Francisco. And I'm one of the mentors at Founders Hong Kong, helping startups to kind of accelerate their growth, be it like pay advertising or just building your go-to-market. So let's go through today's agenda. So we're going to talk about how to, do marketing 101 on Instagram, and also leveraging, Morgan's expertise on building billion-dollar brands and how how those strategies apply to startups. And then we're going to talk about, we're going to do rapid fire questions where I'm just going to ask you a bunch of, questions, and then you tell me kind of like what you want, Louise. And then we're just going to bring people up on stage so they can ask questions, and we can kind of help them along the way. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So I know a lot of founders here, and maybe I can ask you like kind of like broadly, like if they were to start on Instagram today from ground zero, like what should they start doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that first of all, you really need to know your audience, who are your consumer really well. And I would say consumer is probably the word that I will mention many times during the whole webinar. I strongly believe that if you have the right consumer insight, if you know consumer really well, that is really just the foundation of the marketing. You can grow your business very easily and organically if you know your customers. So I think that is probably the first one, like knowing who are your customers? What do you want them to know about your product? And what do they need emotionally? What is the important thing that will make them connect and want to spend time with you? So I think that is probably the first thing you understand that. And then once you understand that, you might actually also realize Instagram is not even the place for my business. It could be actually TikTok because my audience is really Gen Z focused. So I think that is number one. And then number two, if we are talking about Instagram, there are a few really foundational things. Making sure that your profile is really clear. If people actually go through your profile, they know what to expect. And then you actually think through a really solid content strategy. And when we think through content strategy, it's actually not something super difficult or complicated. Throughout my journey at both Instagram and Nike, we actually think through it from three really easy lenses. One is inspiration, the second one is education, and the third one, I would say probably that one is more focusing on like how you grow your community organically. Is community, like what are the content and the tactics you use to engage with your community. So that's kind of the three filters. I would say the first two filters is really based on your product. What is the benefit, what is the product that you want to get to your consumer, and then think through in that lens, how do you create content that I would say have the emotional connection. Probably something that we can talk about in details separately later. So content strategy is that, and then when you think through community, there is a lot of tactics. Like whenever you create a post, think through what is the call to action. Do you want them to comment and tell you feedbacks, or do you want them to actually leave an email so you can send a free gift to them? Like there's a lot of tactics that you can think through to connect with them. So that is one level. And then let me see what else is important to start the account. I think that is probably the foundation. And then you can also think through other ways, such as one of the key tactics that I realize a lot of startup are used and has seen success is to actually be part of the community. Like you follow the account that is related to your product or related to your industry or something that you think your audience will follow. And then you just interact with those accounts. You comment on their posts. You potentially can even have a collaboration with the other accounts. So I think those are the easier tactics and that you can kind of grow your community without a lot of pay media, a lot of like money behind it.
Got it. Wow, that's a lot of things to unpack here. So I'm gonna start off with content first. So let's say you are a, maybe kind of like not as like a well-known brand, but like maybe like you have 1,000 followers. Like how do you actually like know your customers? Because there are customers and there's followers, and they might not be the same. So how do you know like who they are on Instagram?
That's a good question. So you do have basic analytics from the Instagram that you can kind of know a little bit who your follower is. But I agree, there's a lot of times that your followers might not be actually the person that buy a product or so what you do is you see if you have the resources or some of the tools that you can leverage to actually merge the two. So you can actually, there is Instagram, you can actually add pixel and tracking system so that whenever, so that there is kind of like a matching customer base where you can kind of see if your follower actually are also people that are purchasing on your website. If you don't really have all those pixel and everything set up, I think the other way you can kind of look through if you're an e-commerce site, what you can find from e-commerce and you compare the data is of course not apple to apple, but give you an idea.
Got it.
And then I think the other thing you can do is probably do some research online of your competitor or of certain group, like whether those people are likely to be interested in your product or in your industry.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. One hack I found interesting is that, when you press follow on someone, like on some brands, like one brand in particular, and then Instagram will suggest other brands that you can follow. And I kind of like follow them as a way to kind of let Instagram tell me who are the lookalike kind of profiles that I should follow.
Yeah, so that's kind of the hack I mentioned earlier, that like if you follow those account and actually engage with those account, I think the system kind of know that you're in that world. So then you are actually also more likely to be recommended if your audience follow other accounts. So I think that is a hack that is not too well known, but I've seen
Yeah.
success for smaller companies.
Yeah, I'm sure the audience will love all the hacks. Like, of course, we want sustainable growth, not like kind of growth tactics that just last for like a few weeks and then they don't work anymore. Like, do you have any anecdotal, like, or kind of like on the ground kind of like marketing tactics that have worked well over the course of your Instagram kind of career?
Yeah, so the other thing is really community, like how do you manage community conversations? So
Mm,
I know, like, of course, I come from a big corporation. We have like a team that kind of focus on replying all the comments, liking all the comments. So I would say for a start, it's hard, I understand, but do as much as you can. Like you don't have to force yourself to like, oh, I have to reply all the comments or I have to like all the comments, but little bit helps. That is
mm,
actually the key. Just think through like it is a
right.
real person scenario. Like if you have a customer actually come into your store, you want to talk to them. If they have a
Yeah.
question, you want to reply. So it actually virtually is the same thing. Like how do you manage the DM, manage the comments and also manage your DMs actually will make a big difference. So just try to carve out some time in a day or in the week just to select the best comments and reply them and even pin some of the, if you found out that there's a questions that just keep repeating, a lot of people ask the same question, pin that comment, reply that comment so that like that will help people when that will help the algorithm, but at the same time that will help the more people to know the answer to the question. The same
Mm,
with DM. Yeah, try to answer as much as possible. There are AI tools out there, all the chatbots out there.
okay.
Actually, I think some of them are not really expensive, and there is
Okay.
an investment worth looking into because they can help manage your DM
Okay.
and also help manage some of the comments. If they comment certain words,
Okay.
then automatically they will help reply um, PDF or help reply a link to your website. So actually, yeah, look into
Yeah.
those. I highly recommend it. That can help increase your engagement, and that's how you organically build your community.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's say someone they are starting kind of fresh and they don't have a lot of engagements, like they don't have a lot of followers and their content might not be on that level where people respond. So what do you recommend people to do if they don't have a strong follower base? Like what kind of content, how do they create content that resonate with people and therefore driving engagement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say you can look into certain type of giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those giveaway doesn't have to be big. It could be like very simple. It could be as simple as just a free PDF
Okay.
guide, or of course, if you're e-commerce, perhaps something small.
Yeah.
But if you kind of do some type of giveaway and competition, I think that actually will most likely help your engagement because if you have joined one of those giveaway contacts, it usually is a format of like tag one of your friends,
Mm,
write a emoji or something. So then like
yeah.
you kind of, that is an organic way to let more people know your account exists. And no one will say no to free things. So
That's
I
true.
would
That's
think
true.
that is the one thing. And then the second thing is look into if there are some smaller influencers or creators that can partner with you, or even like if you, I'm just making it up, if you are a cupcake company and then partner with a wedding planner, for example, and so you guys are probably focusing on the same group, but the same customer group, but not like competing with each other from a business standpoint. Maybe there's some sort of either content creation partnership or even a live stream. You guys can have a live stream talking about like how to plan a wedding in the summer, so then that kind of helps each other's followers know the other side on the other business. But at the same time, live stream, if you do it right, it actually is also a really good way to get eyeballs and get engagement as well.
Do you have recommendations on how to reach out to your collaborators? Because if you're starting small, like you're like nobody, right? Like what will people respond? Do you have any like ways to get them noticed and start collaborating with them? Like what are the kind of like filters do you look for like your collaborators?
I would say think about like what would be a win-win situation. For example, like I just don't know why I came up with this cupcake and wedding planner. I'm not having a wedding and I'm not a baker, but this wedding and cupcake example. But for example, if using that as like example, you can think to like if you can offer wedding planner or something interesting, it's like, oh, 3 cake tasting at my place or something, or 3 cupcakes for the first 10 people who join the live stream. Like you could think through something small. I think that is one thing that entice the other side to partner with you, because they are giving some benefit for their own followers. And then the second thing is you can also share some insight. You don't have to share all insight, but you can share some insight of your customer base. Perhaps the wedding planner wants to break into the other side of the town. They want to expand another, so there might be something that the other side was interested to get your customer base. So just think through what you can offer that be interesting to the other partner.
Got it. Sounds good. So one interesting I've heard is in order to have visibility, like in order to get noticed, you have to be visible. So one of the ways to do it is build like engaging content. And I'm curious to know like what types of content worked while you when you were working at Instagram. Like how do you come up with like posts, and what format? Is it reels, like post, story, grid, or kind of like, because Instagram has a lot of tools, and sometimes I get confused on which one to choose. Like, do you have any recommendations or best practices?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part is about engaging content. I would say you actually do not need big budget to create great content, especially in nowadays. More and more people, especially the younger generations, Gen Z, I would say even millennial group, they actually want authentic content. So it's not like high production polished content wins. No, it's just like sometimes even someone just authentically cry about something, that content just go viral because it's authentic. So I think the key thing is just like how you can be authentic. So that's one. And then the other thing is like what I kind of mentioned earlier, emotional connection. How do you actually create some content that people really care about? I'm gonna use Apple and Google as an example. Of course, the example I use is like an ad. It's a high production thing, but like my point is like Google and Apple can just like list all benefit. That is actually something that I've seen a lot from my transition from Nike to tech. I see a lot of company, not just Instagram or Meta, a lot of tech company, when they go to market, the content is so much just about product features. It's not even talk about benefit. It's just talk about features. Like if you imagine iPhone or Google, Google would be like, you can search anything from Google search. Or Apple would be like, I have this 10,000 function with this phone. But that's not really how we do marketing. Your marketing is think through like from a consumer standpoint, what is the emotional benefit from them? For example, if you Google and look at Google search campaign 2022,
Yeah,
they talked, it's a powerful campaign. It's not talking about how fast, how effective, how accurate Google search is. It's talking about with Google search, it helps you to think through whether you want to change a career. It helps you to think through, learn something new, or help you to think to connect with a community you never connect with. It's like, those emotional, powerful connection that makes the campaign so successful. And recently, Apple started talking about data privacy.
yes,
If we use the same formula most tech company do, we're like, oh, the iPhone is going to help you protect data privacy, period. But then like if you look into some of the campaign they did, like how they emotionally talks about you don't want everyone to know like when your next period is, or like, it's just like
yeah,
it just makes so much more connectable when you talk about stuff like this. So I highly encourage you guys, when you think through content, think through like why your product matters so much for your audience. What is the emotional connection part? And it
got it.
doesn't have to be like high production. It could be just even me just talking through it. But as long as you actually got the story right, that's
Yeah.
when you create the best content.
Thank you. Yeah, I foresee on kind of like the last click, like performance based marketing where you post something, you have to get sales. It's like really direct response. And I know from your experience, you have done both like branding and engagement. I'm just curious, like, because of course you want to make money, right? Like using social media, like on Instagram, and you have to balance between like branding versus like discount, like product discount. I'm wondering like how do you balance between the two, and can you actually drive sales using branded content?
That is a very good question. So, yes and no. So, if we are actually really thinking through the lens of social media, I would say the content you put out for organic growth should be different from content you put out for pay. So if you're actually using the content for pay, of course, I think all the emotional connection, everything still stay. What I just said, I still believe in it. But I would say you have to think through how to how do you end it? Like what is the call to action? You wanted to make sure that call to action is really strong, and then actually entice them to click. So I think that is really the difference, because for content that's just more like organic, sometimes it's more about like engagement, it's about like helping enticing people to comment or like. So it's a little bit different from pay. And so I would say really focusing on whether your content will lead the consumer to do the call to action you want them to do. And then back to your point about discount.
Yeah.
Yes, discount is probably a very easy tactic, but throughout my experience at Nike, there's
Oh
actually
yeah.
a lot of other tactics, because actually Nike never really do any discount until probably like the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, they rarely
Oh,
do discount. And I think the reason they can be so strong is like, A, they just never did it. B is like they think through like the product. Sometimes they have a lot of tactics controlling the supply and demand. If they create a buzz on certain product, they limit the access. So I'm just saying, like, you can think through like Black Friday could be a limited edition product that or Christmas holidays, like a limited edition product that you will never get. So get it now before it's gone. So it's
yeah.
not discount. It's just more like urgency and scarcity. It's the way that can drive people to click. So that would be yeah, my answer.
Got it. Yeah, I think I've always thought that branding, like, brand marketing is just like kind of like woo stuff, like fluffy stuff. And then until I realized that actually when people do exactly what you're doing, like the execution, they kind of mimic whatever you do, the only differentiation is the brand. Like if you can make your brand more standout and more memorable, I think people will choose you over the other. But in order to build a brand, like it just a lot of storytelling, a lot of work. I would say like brand building is sometimes harder than just like tactics or running like direct response, because you need a lot of time to understand your consumer, and you have to run a lot of like brand lists and maybe focus groups. So that's a good transition to kind of like big companies. Like you have worked at Nike, and I'm just wondering how did like what kind of things you learned in the past that could apply to like startups, because first, startups don't have budget and they don't have resources for R&D. So I'm curious kind of like what kind of stuff that they can apply from like Nike $1 billion marketing campaign.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I will kind of first start with what will I would say is the biggest secret of Nike's
Sure. Yeah.
marketing, and then we'll kind of transition to what some of the startup can learn from it. Again, like I'm going to be really boring, but
That's all
really
right.
the main thing
Yeah.
is about consumer insights, like
Yes,
how
yes,
much do
yes.
you know consumer? Actually, a little bit of a Nike founding story. A few so one of the co-founder of Nike is Bill Bowerman. He actually developed his product based on listening to the voice of his athletes. So he actually create many different version of the running shoes just to change a little bit based on the input of his athletes, and then ultimately created a running shoes that really help people to run faster. So that is really like collecting consumer insight from the ground. And Phil Knight, actually the other co-founder of Nike, sells Nike running shoes from the back of his van, and he will drive up to all the running competition, sometimes even provide some shoes to certain good runners for free. And then he will go back and track all the people's performance. They will ask like whether this shoes helped you run faster. So this is customer service, but at the same time, it's like, gathering consumer insight. So it's really like, I think the power of Nike's why campaign so successful is really understanding consumer insight. So if you look into some of the iconic Nike campaign, I'm sure everyone has different ones, but they actually mostly are not talking about the products. Mostly they're talking about the emotional connection that I just mentioned earlier. Like one of the iconic one for me is If You Let Me Play, is talking about focusing on getting more girls to play in sports. And then I think the recent ones are Dream Crazier, that features Serena Williams, but it's the same concept. It's just like talking about emotionally, they want to try to talk to the female customer to say, hey, you can be part of the sports too. You can be an athlete too. So that's kind of like, an emotional connection that helps Nike to be so iconic and so memorable, because whenever they think about, whenever you think about sports product, you think about Nike, because they stand in front of you saying that I care about athletes, I care about getting more people to do sports. So that's kind of the emotional connection. So I would say for startup, as of course, with limited budget resources, it's hard to go to that level. But at the same time, talking to your customers, even just emailing them to get them to do a survey, or invite some of your VIPs for a coffee, then talk to them. It's not that not possible. I'm sure it's still time consuming, but it's not possible. So think about different ways, even if it's really scrappy, to get consumer insight. Because once you get the story on the consumer insight right, that's really how you become a memorable brand. This is like just like what I talk about data privacy. I'm sure a lot of other phones or a lot of other products has data privacy, but just somehow no other tech company talked about it. iPhone decided that they want to market it, and then everyone is like, privacy, only Apple did it. you know, but it's actually not true. So that is just one thing. And then actually I also came across an insight on Gen Z that I think the new generation really care about privacy. So that's just my guess. I never work at Nike, I never work at Apple, but I'm guessing that is probably the reason why Apple doubled down on privacy and start
Right.
marketing it so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that is kind of also a lesson learned, like, you know, if you know your customer really well, then you're marketing something, you're actually talking about that one point, one connection that they care about, and that's how people associate your brand with the product, or
Yeah.
but your the brand with actually the benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. Consumer insight is key. So what I'm noticing is it's gonna be like cookieless world. Like I think Chrome is gonna remove cookies maybe next year or something. I don't recall exactly the timeline, but yeah, I think marketers have to be prepared like on all those areas like GDPR or just cookieless space. How do you track people? As much as you want to track data like on your Google Analytics, I feel like there's no better way to understand your customer, like just talk to them. Like one of the kind of like the golden rules for startups is talk to your customer, talk to your customer, and talk to your customer. I just feel like people don't talk to customer enough. They just look at the data all day without actually going out to the street. Like especially people in like founders in Hong Kong. I feel like the city is small enough where you can just take MTR and 30-minute ride and then you get there and you can talk to them. But like US may be a little bit different. You need to do a Zoom call. And I've learned that when you talk to your customer, like you hear them out, like you understand their story. There's ICP, which is ideal customer profile, but there's also ICS, which is ideal customer story. And you want to actually understand the
Yes.
story to better craft a story. So yeah, and I really like how Nike, like they're really scrappy before they become big, right? Like they actually have to be on the ground, on the track and field, like giving out shoes. So thank you. And I'm curious to know, like based on your experience working at Nike, they constantly launch big campaigns. I wanted to understand, how do they actually launch a successful campaign? Like what do they do? Do you have a checklist? Like can you share with kind of like some of the learnings?
Yeah, checklist number one, guess what it is? Consumer insights. So that's number one. But number two, I think what we did a lot is also like how do you position your product? Because for example, for me, my experience working there, MX and Air Force One were two of the biggest franchise I led. I think MX at that time was like $2 billion.
Oh.
And actually, MX started as a sports shoes, like a performance shoes. It was not a casual shoes. But then, of course, when technology gets better, innovation gets better, it is not like up to a standard of a performance shoes. So what Nike did is they repositioned the product to be a fashion or lifestyle shoes. So the second, that's why I'm using it as an example to say, like, how do you actually position your product? That's also very important. Using iPhone, like iPhone can talk about many different features. I'm sure the top features they want to position themselves is like they are the phone for taking pictures. But then you can also see they kind of started to talk about data privacy as well. So it's just like thinking through, like, okay, your product probably have 10,000 different benefits. How do you actually want to position it in the market? Maybe because you're actually the cheapest of all of your competitors, so you probably even don't talk about benefit, you just talk about the cheapest, the most, you know. So you have to think through, like, I guess my point is positioning is a strategy. You think through it from a consumer lens, but you also think through it from a competitor lens, like how, based on the competitor, based on the economic and different things that are trends, you factor everything in and just try to think through what is the best way for you to position your product in the market. So I think that is two. And then the third thing is like, what are some different platforms that you can be on? Like, is it Instagram? Is it what you're going to focus on? Or is it going to make a really big event and focus all your efforts on the event and invite all the coolest trend influencers to your event and get them to do the word of mouth for you? So there's different levers, different platform you can focus on. So you have to think through that. And then I think once everything, these key ingredients landed, then you probably think through like the creative, the messaging, and then it's more like tracking execution and everything. And then ultimately you get a really good campaign. I would say one of the thing that a lot of people forget, even Nike sometimes we didn't really do it well, is like the result, how to track the result, how to track the learning from the result. And a lot of the times nowadays, when we're talking about tech, when they're talking about all these different AI tools in the market, how do you actually use some of the tools, for example, A/B testing? So you might even actually go into marketing something with a concept of, I want to see if using social media or this other channel gives me more results. So you can also plan ahead on like what you want to test and learn. And there is test and learn is probably a new jargon in marketing world, where it's just like thinking through learning more about your consumer, learning more about how platform works and how content works, and then you improve throughout the time with your test results.
Got it, got it. I'm sure Nike has a lot of money to spend on testing. For starters, like what do you recommend them to do? Like how big should the test cell be, and how much budget, and how long should the test run?
Good questions. I would say definitely don't put too much in it, but there are tools, even just natively on Instagram and Facebook, you can easily set up an A/B testing.
Okay.
The key is to make sure, but of course you have to have pay support behind it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to has to be a big one. And you just want to make sure whenever you're testing, it's really clear that's only one variable that you got changed. It didn't
Got it.
change everything. So if you just use that, I would say that is probably the easier way to start like testing if talking in front of talking with a content that is someone talking in front of a camera, or a content that without someone, it's just a product, which one actually works better. Yeah. And that actually sparks me on some data that we have. I think both from my time at Nike and Instagram, we have pretty strong data to say that content with faces, if actually like a person talking to you, most likely work better than like just pure product. And then of course the other point is, you guys probably all know, like think, especially on social media, think through the first 3 seconds, making sure that the first 3 seconds is very intriguing, because this is the amount of time that people decide whether they want to scroll or want
Yes.
to. So I would say that is the two big things. And also the third thing is, for social media nowadays, make sure all your contents are optimized for sound off, meaning that you want to make sure you have subtitle. And I think nowadays it's not that difficult. I think they sometimes auto-generated for you. So just have to make sure you click all the right buttons, have the generations. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was running a paid campaign for like a beauty subscription startup, I noticed that the first 3 seconds is so key, because like if I look at the first 3 seconds, it's like going up, and then after the fourth and then onward, it's like downhill slope, like really, really steep. So I think the 3-second thumb stopping experience is so important. And what I've learned is that if you want to learn how to build this kind of momentum, like to doing those 3 seconds, look at Mr. Beast. He's one of the biggest YouTubers, if not the biggest. And he is crazy religiously learning how to actually, create like a thumbnail, and then within the 3 seconds, how to actually get people engaged. So I encourage you to watch his kind of like scientific method of getting people engaged within the 3 seconds. So very, very important. And you know, some people don't want to be the face of the company, or they just don't want to be on a video. Like, what do you recommend them to do?
Yeah, so that is a tough one. If you really don't want to be the face, then think through if there is anyone that you can trust, that will be staying with you long term that can be your face. I would probably say that's the second option. But if that is not really the case, then it's fine. Like there are a lot of like really successful social media account out there that does not have a actual person. So it's not like you have to have a person, but it's just more from A/B testing. All the data shows that, not all, most of the data shows that with a person facing, usually it works better, but it's not always the case. And of course, you can also be creative. Look at Duolingo. If you guys know that account, they Duolingo is a surface is an app to help you learn language, but it did such a great job on social media, on TikTok and also Instagram, but mostly get really viral on TikTok. And the way they do it is they just come up with really fun and creative content, and they don't have a face, but they have a bird.
They have a
They
bird.
have a bird that kind of did that. So yeah, so you might be creative thinking about a mascot that
Mascot.
that you can use instead of yourself. That could be
Yeah.
also an option.
You know, you can just go to you know, DALL-E 3, generate a mascot and use it consistently, and you know, animate using, like, you know, talking head without using your face. So I think that's a pretty interesting idea. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Louis. So we have about 15 minutes left. I would like to ask you some rapid fire questions, and then basically just maybe thumbs up and thumbs down. That's all you need to do. Don't think about it too much. It's not going to be that tricky. So I'm just going to read off a couple of things I would like to ask you. IG, reel or story?
Real.
Up?
Oh,
Real? Real?
real.
Actually, maybe you can just say the name. I think the thumb up, thumbs down might not work. What about Nike Air Max or Air Jordan?
I'm an MX girl. MX.
Okay. Brand versus performance marketing.
Oh, that is a tough one. I would say brand.
Got it. Acquisition or engagement?
Engagement.
I see. Comment or share?
Comment.
All right. And I'm gonna be tricky. Curry fishball or siew
Oh, I love those. Sumai.
Siew. And last but not least, 大排檔 or 茶餐廳.
Ta Chan Tan.
All
No
right. All right.
Taipei. This.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So I see that people have questions. So for those of you who want to ask questions, you can either raise your hand and we will call you in order, or you can type your questions
Yeah,
on
I
the
think there are
chat.
already 2 questions. I don't
Okay.
have 3 now.
Oh yeah. So I am going to answer. I can read the question out loud. So the first one is Lothy. That person asked, well, for startups who don't have any product ready yet, do you think it would be a good strategy to build our community on social media first and post free educational content, then slowly incorporate our product once it is ready, or start once the product is ready?
So, if you're, since I don't really know what the product is, but I would say if you really understand your consumer and you understand the emotional connection, or if from your data, from your question, sounds like you know what type of free educational content they will like, I would say start now. Because there's no shortcut to build community. It takes time. Of course, you can put money behind it, but still, like, even with money, it takes time. So if you're already very sure how to connect with your consumer, you know what they like. I would say start now so you can gradually build a base. So when the product's ready, you already have a group to work with.
Yeah, Luffy, thank you for your question. So I would say build your content first. So here's my kind of framework. So you write engaging content and unique content. It's not like just stuff that you can like ChatGPT or Google, right? Your unique point of view content, spiky content. And then you use the content to create an audience, then let the audience build up to become a community, because you want to actually pre-sell. Like you want to validate if there's a pain point before you even start coding. I think that is one thing I've learned. Like you got to pre-sell. And when you monetize it, that's good because you have reached product market fit. But before that, I think having content that resonate with people, because if that, without content, you don't really know what their needs are. So thank you for asking, and thank you, Louise, for your question, for your answer. So I'm gonna move on to another question. Q, this person asked, why did Nike start doing discount in recent years then? What changed?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think because we start getting more competitive. Of course, I never was in the the most senior leadership group. So, but this is as an employee there, my assumption is that you got more competitor, and then also were more pressures to do discount there's more pressures to get revenue. So that's why they start doing discount. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed that like big companies or prestigious brand like Apple, they don't really do kind of like discount per se. They do more like non-monetary reward, such as if you buy certain amount, like let's say you buy an iPhone, you get a $200 gift card, then you can use that gift card to redeem other products. So it's like you give them something, but it's not like cash bonus, but you use that to get other products. So I think that is a really smart way to do without cheapening your brand. I think that's kind of like the strategy I see big luxury brands do.
Yeah, I think for Nike, of course, we start doing discounts, but there are a few things like the limited edition that we talked about. Like, can you do some sort of collaboration or something that's limited edition? And then if you look into their membership strategy, most other companies like point based or discount based, but Nike's point strategy is still very much not like price based. It's really think through like how I could give you some exclusive content, how I give you exclusive access to certain things. For example, now you can only be a member if you want to get personalized sneakers. If you want to do you add your name or something on personalized sneakers, you have to be a member. So there are certain things that you could think through that sometimes it's not like hurting your bottom line.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Next question we have from Thomas. So he asked, this is Thomas from sports tech startup Movia. Thank you for sharing, great stuff. Could you talk about the ideal split between Instagram formats, posts, reels, stories, when thinking about the three content types Louise mentioned: inspiration, education, organic growth, and other consideration when choosing a format?
That's a good question. I remember you kind of mentioned, you asked that actually, Jonny, but I think my answer was too long that we kind of forgot to answer that one. So I would say you kind of have to understand posts, reels, and stories. What are the purpose of the three? Three of them are actually quite different. I would say as of now, reels is a format that will help you get more discovery, will help you get more awareness. So it's like you have to invest certain amount of your effort on reels so that you get more new audience, new followers. So that's why reels is still very important. And that's the number one. Number two, I think post is more about thinking through engagement, community building with your already exist followers. So whenever you think about a post you publish, you think through more from a community lens or educational lens. And then for story, it's I think kind of a mix. Stories, the story actually helps you to pop on the top of the Instagram. However, you only get live for 24 hours. So it's like a give and take. We actually have seen some success when it comes to pay. Or I say more success when it comes to pay, that we use story if your goal is to get people to click to your website. If you want to drive traffic to your website, using story with pay, we actually have seen some success. So the same idea for even organic story is like, if there is something is more instant, or you want to capture the people's eyes, you actually sometimes get more visibility from a stories perspective.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, right? When starting out, like you have so many options, and yeah, there's no like a guide like to teach you what you should use.
Yeah, there's no formula. It's a little bit of testing and learning, understanding your consumer, but all I can tell you just like foundationally how you think through different format.
Thank you. All right, so next up we have Ganesh. Ganesh, how do you get consumers to share their pain points? As you mentioned, questionnaire, surveys, or coffee meet does not really work. I have sent questionnaires or call people. I don't get responses.
That is a pretty good question. Sometimes if if you're there, so the thing is, you directly connecting with people, even with big company like Nike, Instagram, you expect probably 5 to 10% response rate. Like stuff like this, people don't always respond. So I guess don't feel too depressed or disencouraged by the result. I think that's one. The second thing is, if you really has trouble directly connecting with your customer, think through it from like meeting them in a community space. Like, is there any networking group that you think your customers will be there? Is there any like other group that you think those people might be your potential customers? Try to reach those people that way, or even ask for referral, ask your actually existing network and ask for referral, ask for a connection. So potentially do it that way. That's kind of the best answer I can come with, Jonny. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, like Louise mentioned, find out where your people hang out organically. If not in digital space, physical space, like networking events, venue, meetups. So I think those are very important because you want to catch them when they're in the moment. Like actually like physically, just to go in and kind of ask them their journey. The other thing, like Louise mentioned, is sometimes like a numbers game. Like it's statistically not impossible to get feedback if you don't email enough. Like let's say 1% response rate, you need to get 100 people to get 1%, one people, right? So you need a lot of kind of like outbound activities, like emails and maybe DMs and stuff. Of course, you don't want to spam people, right? You don't want to turn away people, but you need to have a critical mass in order to get a tiny bit of conversion in order to get a response. And sometimes when you don't hear once, you follow up. Follow-up skill is like, for me, for my learning is in B2B marketing. It's like you need like multiple touch points. Maybe not on the same channel, like email, but like email and then DM. If you have the phone number, you can see if it's opt-in, and then you can call them. And of course, there's no better way to meet them in person through networking events. So that's like my experience. So hope that will help answer your question. And good luck with getting response, because you need to do a lot more work. All right, next up we have Dawn. So Dawn asked, is Nike open to white label custom shoe making collabs to make on an ongoing basis for external brands?
That one I don't know the answer to since I haven't worked there for a while. But I do know that Nike in general is always looking for collaborations.
Yeah, maybe it's tough to talk to big brands to listen to you, right? So either you start creating viral content and then get noticed and then tag the brand and then get found. Otherwise, I think it's hard. Unless you do it the traditional way, you hire a PR agency to talk about your company and how good your kind of like, your brand is. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough to get found in this noisy world. Cool. We have another question from Q. What is a good time to start doing paid marketing for early stage startups? What are the things I have to be aware of transitioning from organic growth to paid marketing growth? Bit of context. We are a B2B SaaS turning facts data into shareable content with Gen AI. We launched private beta and our growth has been organic by talking to users, and we have revenue and so forth. So wow, that's impressive.
Very impressive.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, best time for paid marketing, I would say you have, I guess probably the first question is think through from an investment or dollar standpoint, how much do you have? And what is your goal? Because I would say paid marketing is always very effective if you have the right targeting strategy and with the right content, the right product. But there are times that you might be actually driving growth for the sake of growth. So I would say don't think that, I guess the main takeaway is I don't think pay marketing as like the magic method. I guess once you kind of use organic growth to understand a little bit about who your audience is already is, they have give you some data on how people react with your content, and you actually do have flexible budget to start investing and do some testing, then I think that's probably the time that you can start doing it. But don't try to squeeze some money for the sake of growth if you don't have, all the insights and content ready. That would be kind of how I answer the question. Jonny, do you have any follow?
Yeah, this topic is kind of like dear to my heart because I've been doing paid. So golden rule in startup world, don't start running paid unless you have product market fit. And how do you define product market fit? That's another topic to discuss. But
Sure, that's a good, yeah.
Unless you have like good retention and people are knocking on your door, and then to really kind of validate if your product is, a need to solve a really sharp pain, then unless you figure that out, like don't start doing paid. You can do paid marketing just to run tests, right? So just to get early, because organic is really tough, but if you use paid to like test your messaging, I think that works. And then you take that and figure out your go-to-market strategy. And in 2000, maybe 2000, before COVID, it was growth at all costs, and now is sustainable. So maybe prior to COVID is growth at all costs, and then now it's like growth at sustainable growth. And next year, 2024, is going to be growth at no or low cost. So I think gotta be bootstrap. But back to your question, make sure when you do pay, like the CAC, which is cost to acquire customer, to LTV, the formula is 3, meaning that the LTV has to be 3 times more than your CAC. So because when you don't do it, the unit economics doesn't work. So maybe that will be the kind of like the golden ratio that you can look for. All right. And
It's a very good answer, Jonny.
Yeah, I have another question from my friend Eric. Hey, Eric, Welcome. So he asked, Nike has a strong branding. I love and buying Nike. Thank you for being a loyalist. Because of that, may I ask how to build a strong branding with a limited budget right now for startups, especially in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I can imagine it's really tough. So I'll say the first thing is, well, probably sound like a broken clock. You understand your customers, got really strong consumer insight, knowing that what really can help you build that emotional connection. And then is thinking through like the actual branding, like how do you want to come across in the market? One of the key thing is to think through consistency. You is like from the brand logo to your content to if you have a physical store, how your store look like, if you have a website, how your website look like. I think one of the things that makes Nike such a strong brand is like we are very consistent across any touch point, any journey the consumer take with us. So I think that is not budget, constraint. You just have to be very mindful whenever you do anything. Even if you write an email to your customer, it's the voice sounds like your brand. So I think those it started little bit by little bit. So those are little tactics that can help you at least when consumer doesn't matter how they discover you, they really strongly know your brand. So I think that's probably the first thing to start. And then the second thing is probably a lot of what we were talking about, like when you invest, when you start thinking through social media, what content and what tactics you use.
Great. Thank you, Louise. Well, that's a wrap. We are out of time. And thank you, Louise, for doing this webinar with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to LinkedIn you. So thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hope you enjoy the content. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.